Hello, everybody. In Chapter 10, we're going to be talking about motivating employees. Throughout the chapter, we're going to be talking about the value of motivation, motivation in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Hertzberg and his motivating factors, McGregor's theory X and Y, theory Y, or theory X and theory Y, Ochi's theory Z, goal setting theory, management by objectives, meeting employees' expectations, treating employees fairly, putting theory into action, and then personalizing motivation. So, a lot to cover here, so let's go ahead and get started. I really like this example of motivated employees from the very start. Kim Jordan of New Belgium Brewing. New Belgium is a beer company that I really enjoy. So Jordan founded the company with her husband in 1991 and eventually hired a friend, giving him stake in the company. The company now ships beer to 45 states and earns $225 million annually. After 1 year of work, employees receive a bicycle and an ownership stake in the company. After 5 years, they receive a paid trip to Belgium. Employee retention is 93%. So when you think about that, I mean, if you were going to get a bike and ownership stake after a year, I mean, you definitely want to stay, the year. And then after 5 years, you get a free trip to Belgium. So I mean, that would be a great perk. To work at that organization, as well as being a pretty cool organization because it's a brewery. So, the value of motivation, and whenever we're talking about motivation, it's either going to be intrinsic or extrinsic. So, intrinsic rewards, those are the personal satisfaction you feel when you perform well and complete goals. Example of intrinsic rewards is just pride in your performance, sense of achievement, just wanting to do, a good job overall. It's just kind of what you feel inside. Intrinsic rewards. One important type of motivator is intrinsic rewards. People who respond to such inner promptings often enjoy their work and share their enthusiasm with others. Are you more strongly motivated by your own desire to do well or by extrinsic rewards like pay and recognition? So, me personally, I'm definitely intrinsically motivated, but I mean, don't get me wrong, I do like getting a steady paycheck. It's just one of those things. I mean, it's just kind of one of the perks of the job at that point. But you know, whenever I get up in the morning, the pay isn't the thing that's driving me. I want to get up, I want to, be able to achieve something that day, and that's what keeps me going from a day-to-day basis. You have your extrinsic rewards, which is just something that gives you by someone else in recognition of good work. So kinds of extrinsic rewards, pay raises, praise, promotions, any type of rewards, and that sort of thing. So some of the fringe benefits, these were top perks ranked by employees. So, health insurance was extremely important, paid time off, bonuses, paid sick leave, retirement plan. All of these, and we've got, what, five of them listed here. All of these are going to be pretty standard perks at, most, careers that you have. If they don't have something, or if they don't offer all five of these, I would definitely negotiate with the employer, because I mean, these are pretty standard things to have. Hmm. So, as far as the value of motivation, it all starts with scientific theory. So Frederick Taylor, he was kind of like the father of scientific management. So scientific management is studying workers to find the most efficient ways of doing things, and then teaching people those techniques. So three key elements to increase productivity: time, method of work, and then the rules of work. So continued on with that, we have time motion studies. So studies of which tasks must be performed to complete a job and the time needed to do each task, and then led by the development of the principle of motion economy, which is a theory developed by Frank and Lillian Gilbert, that every job can be broken down into a series of elementary motions. So, going with Taylor, UPS is a huge believer in kind of what he, had preached, and what he had found through his scientific studies. So, UPS drivers work under strict rules and requirements. So, how to get out of their trucks. They have to get out with the right foot first. How fast to walk. They are supposed to walk at 3 feet per second. How many packages to deliver a day. It should be 125 to 175 in off-peak seasons. And then how to hold their keys, teeth up with their third finger. Another one of the things that they implemented not that long ago is they are supposed to only make right turns at stoplights, just because it's supposed to speed up, their deliveries and everything. So very strict in what they do. Obviously, UPS is a very, well-run organization, but I'd be really interested to speak to somebody who works for UPS to see, if they're following all of these standards all the time, if there's any kind of lapse in it, if they enjoy working under these kind of conditions. So Taylor had 4 key principles. The first one being study how job is performed. So you're gathering time and motion information. Check different methods. Codify the best method into rules. The third one, you're going to choose workers whose skills match those rules. And then the fourth is establish a fair level of performance and pay. So warnings of employee stress. If you're working in any job at some point, you're probably going to get stressed at it. So, some of the things that you can kind of look for, negative attitudes at work, harsh language, drops in productivity, chronic lateness, absenteeism, careless with details, unable to work with others, withdrawal from coworkers, easily upset or angered. What I found is if I do have somebody who kind of falls under one of these categories, instead of kind of getting on them and saying, you gotta, do better or do this, whatever it is, I'll just pull them to the side sometimes and be like, hey, what's going on? Is everything okay at home? How are you feeling about your job? I mean, are you still enjoying your job? That sort of thing. I mean, just little conversations like that can kind of spark things. And, even if they don't want to talk right then and there, they might come back to you a little bit later and say, I was thinking about it. I've been having some things going on at home lately. I'm not feeling the best. I've been having some health issues, something like that. So, I mean, it's really kind of amazing what you can find out from somebody by just asking, how are things going? So that's kind of what, I try to do from, time to time. Hmm. So Elton Mayo and the Hawthorne studies. So researchers study worker efficiency under different levels of light. Productivity increased regardless of light condition. Researchers decide it was human or a psychological factor at play. So the Hawthorne effect, which is the tendency for people to act differently when they know they're being studied. So pretty much in this study, they were trying to figure out, like, do people work more whenever there's more light in a room or less light, or if the light is at a certain setting, are they working more effectively, or are they being more efficient? And yeah, pretty much what they found through it is none of that really matters. It pretty much comes down to if somebody thinks they're being watched, they're going to act completely different than what they're currently doing at their job. So I mean, I think we've all probably been at that point at some job where we've being watched by somebody, maybe a supervisor, and we're really wanting to do a good job for them, not wanting to screw up or anything. And it's kind of nerve-wracking whenever they're kind of standing there looking over your shoulder, that sort of thing. So that would be a prime example of the Hawthorne effect. So application of the Hawthorne studies. So the research of the Hawthorne plant of Western Electric in Cicero, Illinois, pictured there on the right, gave birth to the concept of human-based motivation by showing that employees behave differently simply because they were involved in planning and executing the experiments. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I think I mentioned it a couple chapters ago. You've probably heard it at some point, whether it be a psychology course, sociology course, something like that. It's a pretty broad term, but it does have a play here in business courses as well. So that's just the theory of motivation based on unmet human needs, from basic, physiological needs to safety, social and esteem needs to self-actualization needs. So needs that have already been met do not motivate. If a need is filled, another higher level need emerges. So here we have, a diagram of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So, you've got your, physiological needs at the bottom, safety needs, social needs, esteem needs, and then finally self-actualization at the very top. So Hertzberg was another researcher who would kind of build off of Maslow and kind of research this question as to what creates enthusiasm for workers and makes them work to full potential. So Hirschberg found job content factors were most important to workers. Workers like to feel they contribute to the company, so those are just common motivators. So job factors that cause employees to be productive, that give them satisfaction. For job and environment factors and maintained satisfaction but did not motivate employees, those are hygiene factors. So job factors that can cause dissatisfaction if missing, but they do not necessarily motivate employees if increased. So here are some examples of the motivators. Here's the work itself, achievement, recognition, responsibility, growth and advancement, something that we probably want at any point in our career. And then you've got your hygiene factors. These factors can cause dissatisfaction. So you've got company policy and administration, supervision, just overall working condition, interpersonal relationships, with your coworkers, your boss, supervisor, and then just overall salary, status, and job security. I mean, if you're unhappy with one of those, you're probably going to start to become more unhappy with the rest of them as well. And so when you compare, Maslow's hierarchy needs and Hirschberg's theory of the factors, you look pretty much, you know, you've got what, 5 on each side of them. So you've got your motivational on the top for Hirschberg. You've got your hygiene on the bottom, and just kind of how they relate to one another. So pretty similar in their kind of ways of thinking. I think Hirschberg just kind of went a little more in depth in his. So reigniting employees' drive. So a couple of ways to do that is don't work alone all the time. Partners or teams can make more efficient and fun. A lot of times it's fun to work with a partner or a team, just to get somebody else's thoughts, to talk to somebody throughout the day. So number 2, redecorate your space to get away from the same old space. Number 3, don't complain. Think of things to celebrate. And then number 4, make friends with your coworkers. Work is a lot more easy when you do have a friend there, and somebody to kind of joke around with at times. Kind of talk about how your weekend was, what you got going on in the upcoming weekend. Just kind of celebrate those small victories that you have in day-to-day life. So moving on to McGregor's theory X and theory Y. So Douglas McGregor proposed managers had 2 different sets of assumptions concerning workers. Their attitudes about motivating workers were tied to these assumptions. So McGregor called them theory X and theory Y. Theory X, just the assumption that workers dislike work and seek to avoid it. Workers must be forced, controlled, directed, or threatened with punishment to get them to perform. Workers prefer to get directed and avoid responsibility. And then primary motivators are fear and punishment. So kind of a very negative type of way of looking, at working. And then you've got theory Y, which is kind of the opposite, which is, people like to work. It's part of life. Workers seek goals to which they are committed. You've got the commitment to goals. Most people will seek additional responsibilities. People can use creativity to solve problems. Intellectual capacity is only partially realized, and then people are motivated by a variety of rewards. So along with theory X, theory Y, we'll talk about theory Z here in a couple of minutes, but theory X managers don't live to make their employees happy. For example, Charlie Ergen, the founder and chair of Dish Networks, makes employees work long hours and a whole lot of mandatory overtime, yet the company's earnings have consistently beat market expectations. Would you prefer to work for theory X or theory Y manager? Obviously I think I'd rather work for theory Y, just because, you don't want somebody who's kind of a Debbie Downer all the time, constantly on you about working long hours, meeting, unrealistic deadlines, that sort of thing. So, overall, I think I'd rather have an optimist rather than a pessimist. And so, like I said, along with those, we do have a theory Z. With theory Z, what it is William Ochi researched cultural differences between the U.S. Type A and Japan Type J. Type J are committed to the organization and group, and Type A are focused on the individual. So in Japan, they're more towards a team building environment, whereas here in America, we're more focused on ourselves. So Theory Z is a hybrid approach of types A and type J. So here is a good example of that. And then if you look here, in the middle, so you've got, long-term employment, collective decision-making, individual responsibility, just overall holistic concern for employees, including family. So when you compare the three theories, you've got theory X, theory Y, theory Z. Theory X, like I said, very pessimistic. Employees dislike work, will try to avoid it. Employees prefer to be controlled and directed. Employees seek security, not responsibility. Theory Y, a little more optimistic. Employees view work as a natural part of life, prefer limited control, and employees will seek responsibility. And then theory Z, how that lines up with that. Employee involvement is the key to increased productivity. Employee control is implied and formal, and then employees prefer to share responsibility and decision making. And continued here for theory X, theory Y, and theory Z. Employees must be intimidated by managers for theory X. Employees are motivated by financial rewards. For theory Y, employees perform better in work environments that are not intimidating. I would agree with that one. Employees are motivated by needs and different needs. And then theory Z, employees perform better in environments that foster trust and cooperation. And then employees need guaranteed employment and will accept slow evaluations and promotions. So goal setting theory, just the overall idea that setting ambitious but attainable goals can motivate workers and improve performance if the goals are accepted, accompanied by feedback and facilitated by organizational conditions. Applying it. So management by objectives involves a cycle of discussion, review, and evaluation of objectives among top and mid-level managers, supervisors, and employees. Managers formulate goals in cooperation with everyone in the organization, and then there's a need to monitor results and reward achievement for that. We have expectancy theory, which is the amount of effort employees exert on a specific task depends on their expectations of the outcome. Employees ask, can I accomplish the task? What's my reward? Is the reward worth the effort? Expectations can vary from person to person. I would say, expectancy theory, I've been asked to work on a couple different projects, and I knew the end result of the project wasn't really going to benefit the organization in the long run. It was just kind of like busy work. So in those situations, me and everybody that was on the team for that project, we probably didn't put in our best effort just because we knew it was just kind of a busy work project that wasn't necessarily going anywhere. Now I've been on the other portion of it where I've worked on projects that were very important to the organization, and everybody who's working on that project is putting in their best effort just because everybody kind of knows that everything is dependent on the results that we found within our project. So a good diagram of expectancy theory. So task, can I accomplish the task? If no, they're not motivated. If yes, outcome is the reward. If it's no, they're not motivated. If yes, they're motivated. So researchers Nadler and Lahr modified expectancy theory and suggested 5 steps for managers, which are determine what rewards employees value, determine each employee's performance standard, ensure that performance standards are attainable, and then tie rewards to performance and be sure employees feel rewards are adequate. Equity theory. This is the idea that employees try to maintain equity between inputs and outputs compared to others in similar positions. Workers often base perception of their outcomes on specific person or group, and then perceived inequalities or inequities can lead to lower productivity, reduced quality, increased absenteeism, and even resignation. So job enrichment, motivational strategy that emphasizes motivating the worker through the job itself. So it's based on Hertzberg's motivators such as responsibility, achievement, and recognition. Some of the key characteristics of work: skill variety, task identity, task significance, autonomy, and feedback. You've got job enlargement, which a job enrichment strategy that involves combining a series of tasks into one challenging and interesting assignment. Job rotation, a job enrichment strategy that involves moving employees from one job to another. Job enrichment, I always kind of think about, a factory job. If I was working at like an assembly line, I wouldn't want to do the same thing day in, day out. I would want a little more uh, job enrichment. So I'd want to move from one job to another and kind of figure out, different things that were going on within the assembly line. So enrichment by way of flexibility. 60% of employees think that they can be productive and efficient outside the office. 66% of employees would take a lower paying job if it came with more flexibility, and then 59% of employees say their company doesn't have a formal out of office work policy. So, I've run into this before with talking with some of my colleagues, like, we would love to work, 4 10-hour days instead of 5 8-hour days. Just being able to have that flexibility to do things like that. I mean, that goes a long way, with employee, motivation and just being overall happy, with your current job. So motivating through open communication. I think communication is probably one of the most important things that you can do within an organization. So it creates a culture that rewards listening. Train managers to listen, use effective questioning techniques, remove barriers to open communication, avoid vague and ambiguous communication, make it easy to communicate, and ask employees what is important to them. So I know Toyota, they do a really great job of having open communication, and they're actually one of the only companies that uses a suggestion box and does it well. So they have a suggestion box. Anybody and everybody can write suggestions in the suggestions box, and they take it into consideration, and they actually implement a lot of the things that go in the suggestions box. Now, you might have worked for a place that has a suggestion box, and most of the time, my experience with suggestion boxes are a lot of the employees just put a lot of snarky comments and a lot of jokes in it, that sort of thing, and it doesn't necessarily work out for them. But Toyota is the one place where it has actually worked out. So I always thought that was kind of a really cool thing about Toyota. But yeah, just going back to open communication, just making sure that you do have those open ways to communicate with one another. The worst thing that I found is working for managers who are constantly behind a closed door. Just by having that open door to where you can constantly go in. If you have a question, you can ask them. If you have concerns, you can talk to them. That's something that I've always tried to implement at my job, and I think it goes a long way with the employees that I've worked with. So when too much isn't too much, so schedule correspondence. So don't check email whenever it arrives. Schedules, times to check. Pick one task. Having too much open at once takes attention away from a singular task. Do the most important items first. You need to set boundaries, so don't be afraid of calls going to voicemail or emails stacking up. Maintain human contact. Don't look at your computer or phone while someone is at your desk. Keep attention and respect on them. So recognizing the job well done. Raises are not the only ways to recognize an employee's performance. Recognitions can also include advancement opportunities, challenging work, noticing positive actions out loud, paid time off, prime parking spots, more vacation days, flexible schedules, and small equity stake or stock options within the company. So I think all of these are great examples of providing a little more extra motivation and something that most employees would really like to have. So keys for productive teamwork, having a common understanding of your task, clarify your roles and responsibilities within the team, setting rules, get to know each other, and then communicate openly and often. One of the best things that I've ever done whenever I've been a part of a team isn't exactly what happened during the time when we were working. It was happening, whenever the job was done for the day and what we did after the day. So whether it was going out for drinks after work, going out to dinner with one another, meeting for coffee early in the morning, different things like that. Just getting to know everybody on your team. And then that way you create that personal relationship with everybody. And I found that on those teams you're a lot more productive if you do have those personal relationships, just because you can get some inside jokes going with one another, and little things like that just go a long way. So, motivate employees across the globe. So, cultural differences make worker motivation a challenging task for global managers. So, high context cultures require relationships and group trust before performance, and then low context is cultures believe relationship building distracts from tasks. So, we're going to go through the different types of generations, and that's been kind of one of the things that's been toughest for me is trying to figure out how different generations like to be managed. So motivating employees across generations. So we've got the baby boomers here, which 1946 to 1964. They experienced great economic prosperity, job security, and optimism about their future. A lot of the baby boomers are slowly starting to retire out right now. After that, we've got Generation X, raised in dual career families, attended daycare, and have a feeling of insecurity about jobs. So a lot of these were individuals that were raised by, the baby boomers. Generation Y or generation or your millennials. I would fall into that category, which is raised by indulgent parents and don't remember a time without the internet or mobile phones. Main constant in life is inconsistency. I don't necessarily if I would agree with that, just because I remember a time without mobile phones. I remember a time without internet. Um, it was a lot easier time actually, but especially for those individuals who were born, in the 1980s all the way up to about early 1990s. Most of them are going to remember a time without internet and a time without mobile phones. You got Generation Z, grew up post 9/11 in the wake of the Great Recession. Amid many reports of school violence, main constant life is inconsistency. And then we've got now the Generation Alpha, which is born after 2010. So not a whole lot of data on them just because they are so young. So Generation X in the workplace, so they desire economic security, but focus more on career security than job security. Good motivators as managers due to emphasis on results rather than work hours. They tend to be flexible and good at collaboration and consensus building, and then very effective at giving employee feedback and praise. So millennials at the workplace, I feel like millennials, constantly getting some sort of bad reputation. So they tend to be impatient, skeptical, blunt, expressive. They're very tech savvy, able to grasp new concepts, able to multitask and are efficient. They're tolerant. They place a high value on work-life balance. Fun and stimulation are key job requirements and tend to job surf due to state of the economy. So, with millennials, what it comes down to is they just want to be happy at the job and they don't want to work too much a lot of the times. It's not saying they're not willing to work hard, they just want to have the flexibility to kind of, work whenever they want to. Even if that does mean, coming in late and working late, or, coming in early and leaving early, they just want to have some sort of flexibility when it comes to that. So, how to be happy at work, the Millennial Manual. So, try to make a positive impact on the company and the community. Create an excellent rapport with your supervisor. Strive to exceed expectations and take on new challenges. Never stop learning. Be a continual learner throughout life. Find multiple mentors in varying ages of backgrounds, and then work hard and play hard. So Generation Z in the workplace tend to be a little more cautious and security minded, inspired to improve the world. They're resilient and pragmatic. They're also tech savvy. They want to be part of a community within the workplace, and then they place emphasis on practical benefits such as healthcare. And then communications across the generations. So, baby boomers prefer meetings and conference calls. Gen Xers prefer email and will choose meetings only if there are no other options. Millennials prefer to use technology to communicate, particularly through social media. Gen Zers prefer face to face meetings and shy away from the phone calls. So I thought this was a really kind of funny graph whenever you look at. So, if you get the silent generation here, which we don't have a whole lot of anymore, but you can take a look here. Most of them did their preferred contact through the phone over in the baby boomers and just see kind of, we've got baby boomers on down to Gen X, down to millennials, and how little amount of time each one of them want to spend on the phone. And then phone apps are going up. Even text and email. Baby boomers got relatively high amount. Same way with Gen X 28, and then down a little bit with millennials. Millennials more focused on social media and online chat, which online chat I'm a pretty big fan of. At work, even though I do like getting on the phones from time to time and just talking to somebody, just because you can lose so much through interacting through like an online chat. So sometimes it's just best to talk over the phone, because you can hear somebody's voice, you can hear the tone of the voice, you can hear the expressions behind the words that they have to say. So I guess that would be kind of my recommendation is don't always end up just doing one thing. Be open to using kind of all the different platforms, just because you don't know who necessarily you're going to be communicating with. So some of the unusual motivations that are out there. So Gary Kelly, CEO of Southwest Airlines, so he shocked his coworkers this year when he showed up at the company Halloween party dressed as Gene Simmons, frontman from the rock group Kiss. Now each year in his blog, he asks Southwest employees to suggest his next costume. How do you think Kelly's Halloween antics help develop happy, productive, and loyal employees? So overall, I mean, I think that's a great thing that Gary Kelly is doing for the organization, just because it does build camaraderie. It just becomes kind of a thing that everybody looks forward to on a yearly basis. So, if everybody can kind of come together and vote that, he dresses up as, a member of Kiss, or maybe he dresses up as like Harry Potter one year, whatever it might be, I think that's something that everybody can get behind. And I mean, that just kind of helps, create a loyal, employee base for him. So we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but here are some of the best companies, to work for. You've got Google, which is located in California. Wegmans Food Market. You got Boston Consulting Group, Baird, and then Edward Jones here in St. Louis. So Baird and Edward Jones, not that far away from us. So some of the perks that come with some of these jobs. If you look in the tech industry, you look at Apple. I mean, they have on-site doctors. They've got free apples. You've got wellness, gym and running trails. You've got extras such as discounts, tuition assistance, donation matching. Facebook paid paternal leave. You get 4 months. For food, they have a candy shop, a spa and bike repair, and then they also have classes, coaching, and a barber shop on campus. And then with Twitter, ergonomic workspaces. They do have free meals, which is something that Google also offers. They have a boot camp and yoga classes, game room, and improv classes. So it's really interesting to see some of these big time organizations, see kind of how they're working and the different things that they're implementing. Such as free meals, different types of classes. When it comes to wellness, if they're offering gyms at their campus or off campus, different things like that. So some really cool things. Hopefully, some of these big time organizations start to kind of take note of these tech industries and start implementing a few of these other things as well. So that's all I got for Chapter 10. We will see you next time in Chapter 11.